You're listening to Ready That Go podcast, where we talk about the mysteries of parenting. My name is Lenart.
And my name is Demian. Among other things, we explore books on parenting and discuss the chapters on this podcast.
Join us on our journey as we attempt to incorporate our new knowledge into everyday fatherhood. Hi everybody, welcome to another Ready That Go episode. It's excited to be back, and let's dive first into recap of previous week. Demian, how are you? What's happening?
Hi, I'm good, thank you. Thanks, Leonard. Nice to be having our chats again. This last week's been really good. I've managed to journal a bit more than previous weeks, so slowly trying to build this habit. It reminded me of some exercises that I was doing last year in building habits. Set yourself 66 days to do the same thing every day, if it's fitness, if it's exercise or anything like that. So I've actually also created a calendar for myself so I can keep track, and it's a printed calendar rather than something on my computer that's just digital and gets lost. So it's on my fridge, I see it every day. And I'm wanting to try to exercise every day and also journal. So if at the end of the day I walk past the fridge and going to bed, hectic, I haven't journaled quickly, I'll sit down, even if it's just 5 minutes, and just smash away some words on the keyboard. And the reason why I got all amped to do it properly again is because it was so rewarding last week. Jack and I had quite a day last week. We kept on arguing. We had quite a lot of, I don't know, fights is not the right word, but we just weren't seeing eye to eye. I would ask him to do something, or I would be doing everything wrong. Everything that I would do with him was wrong, and he got so pissed off with me. And fortunately, Carla was at home that day, and she took him for 5 minutes, and what I did with those 5 minutes is I wrote my experience down, and that just really brought it to the forefront. I just wrote down exactly what happened, and while I was writing it down, I could kind of think on it, and it just made me even more conscious of my interaction the following day. And I sat down with Jackson and we spoke through those experiences, and honestly, by the end of the week, yesterday or over the weekend, Jackson was saying to me things along the lines of, "Daddy, I don't want to go to timeout today." Something that I'm not, as I've mentioned before, I don't know if I fully stand behind the timeout story, but it was something that he brought up. And he doesn't want to go to timeout. He doesn't want to go to Miss Sam's office. So at school, there's been occasions where he wasn't listening to the teachers or just testing boundaries. But he has consciously come, and our last 3 or 4 days have been so different. And it's because I have been a lot more conscious. I'm sure of it, and I'm trying to integrate and really get to his level. So everything that we've learned in the chapters past, I think have started to show fruition. And so also the journaling, just writing it down and pondering on it, thinking on it. Prior to this, I also, at the end of the day with Jack, I would often think, okay, now it's my time. Now I can switch off. I've had my day. I can do what I want to do, and but I'm not integrating stuff either. So taking that moment to writing it down makes it so much easier for me, A, to switch off, B, I feel more like I can do my own thing now, and I haven't kind of just let the day slide with Jackson. I've really taken it on. So yeah, journaling, once again, from a recap point of view, has been very, very rewarding for me. Honestly, I did it twice last week, and that's how much reward I got out of it.
Awesome. That sounds awesome. Good job.
Yeah.
Really nice.
Yeah. And how about you, Leonard? How was your last week?
My last week was okay. We talked last week about connection and communication, so it's really trying to be mindful or focused on the way I connect with Noel. And it's quite hard at times, and it's easier to just do things like cognitively and just get them through without any connection. So I had a very clear example of what discommunication or disconnection with your child means is yesterday evening. As we were doing the evening routine, we were already really over the time that's set for the evening routine. So I was really impatient and nervous to get her quickly dressed and brush her teeth and bathe her and everything.
I feel you, dude. Yeah, it happens a lot.
And she was trying to connect with me, right? She was just trying to get my attention, just trying to get me to be with her. And she would meowing all the time, looking at me, and she was like caressing me with her hands like a kitten. And I was amazed by how much tightness in chest, hard of breathing that created in me. I was just like almost exploded from anxiety, or I managed to keep my voice calm, but I didn't connect with her. I was just trying to get her through the routine. I pretty much ignored her attempts to connect, and just like in the book, she then got angry at first and then she withdrew. And we kind of managed to get through routine with this detachment. It wasn't a good feeling. I felt it that I didn't do a good job. I just couldn't make myself go through the annoyance and through the anxiety to be with her, and she felt that really, really well. And as soon as we went out of the bathroom and she saw mother, she started crying really, really loudly, just ran to her mother, and it was like this cry of disappointment with me. And I was like, oh God, that was poorly handled. But I did manage then to go to her and apologize and explain to her that tomorrow is a new day, and that we'll do it again, and I will be much more patient and empathetic with her. So yeah, that was like, it's hard to create connections when you're tired, when you're frustrated. Yeah. And I think that's the time that the child needs the most of your connection, because she feels that you're annoyed. She feels these things, and she needs safety, right? And security and connection. And you can't give it to them in that moment. So that was a bit hard to see that cry at the end, because it was like more a cry towards, you see that I'm really dissatisfied on how you handled this, really disappointed, and really hurt. You really hurt me with your actions. Yeah. So that was like, okay, I handled that poorly. So that's regarding contingent communication, how important it is for a child to feel secure and safe and felt. And I started journaling as well, finally. So it was a really good feeling of writing things down. I forgot, because I only journaled when I was like 10 years old. I have really, really old journals from primary school.
Wow.
And then nothing afterwards, and felt good. Just a couple of lines of what's happening, what I felt. And yesterday I wrote down this experience, and I tried to especially focus on my bodily sensations and wrote those down, because I think these are important, because they are really implicit memory that just happens, right? So yeah, that's my week. I like how this podcast not forces me, but motivates me to be more present, to think about these things more.
Yeah, me too.
I'm really appreciative of this aspect, because it's like this constant reminder to work on these things, and constant reminder to be mindful of the way I'm handling parenting, right? So that's a nice thing to have.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well done, dude.
Thank you.
That's a tough one. And as you said, like how we learn from our children and our children learn from us. I mean, it's a two-way street. And those experiences when they often happen when we're most tired, when when our kind of protective layers are really low, and we're very bad at controlling ourselves. And it's, I don't know, controlling, but just kind of be present and leave all our own personal stuff at the door. It's so tough, eh?
Yeah, it's
so tough.
Really tough to go over these things and just
And then, although being aware of it and the reward afterwards, I mean, I think we've both started having glimpses of the little work that we've done, and
Yeah.
it's exciting too.
In my case, it's rewarding if I manage to get rid of the guilt and of the strict voice of myself. But yeah, it is rewarding. Yeah. Okay, let's talk about today's chapter. So we've come to the chapter 5, I think.
Yeah.
It's a chapter about how we attach and relationships between children and parents. I like this chapter because it talks about attachment theory. And attachment theory has been here for quite a while. The pioneer of the theory is called John Bowlby. And I think he worked on this theory in the 60s. So it's been here a while. And pretty much the sense of it is that the connections children have with their primary caregivers, whether being parents or anyone else, they form attachment to these people. And this attachment can be different. It can be secure, which means that the child had repeated experiences of care, of compassion, of present people who felt them, who connected with them. And if these experiences were constant and repeated, a child would form what John Bowlby calls a secure base. So that attachment would be secure, safe. That's the secure attachment. That's the one we all strive towards to create with our children. And it's really important in shaping this attachment, because the interactions we have with children will define their sense of security, about exploring the world, their resilience to stress, their ability to balance their emotions, and their capacity to have this good coherent story about themselves and to make sense of their lives. And so pretty much attachment forms, I think it forms in the first 3 years, and those 3 years define how the child will experience most of his life, right? So a lot of stuff that happens in the first 3 years then reflects throughout the child's life into adulthood. So it's important because it affects their ability to create meaningful relationships in their life, and a lot of stuff is connected.
And also a sense of independence.
Yeah,
which
exactly.
Can seem kind of counterintuitive. Maybe that's not the right way of saying it, but like, how can attachment create independence? But it's that foundation. It's so key for that individuality to shine through, because they feel so confident in themselves because they've had that attachment and security that was provided by that primary caregiver.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you have a secure base, like an actual base you can always return to, then it's much easier to go into the world, explore it, be independent, but knowing you have somewhere to fall back, right? And that's even with infants, or you can see this, right? If they will go outside, but when they look back, if you're there, if that secure base is there, they will move forward, right? And if you're encouraging, they will explore. Yeah. So that's the attachment. That's the secure attachment. But the great news is, as we talked about before, is that no matter what happened in the first 3 years, nothing is written in stone. So these things can always be changed, corrected, as long as you decide to
consciously put the effort in.
Yeah, to put the effort into being a good parent. Nothing is set into stone. Everything can be changed. So that for me
it's never too late.
It's never too late, yeah. And I think even Dr. Siegel writes in one or two of his books, I think in the last one, the first words are, "Don't worry, nothing is too late," right? And I'll give you now a pause to make a relieved sigh, right? So that's the great news, right? You can,
and nobody's perfect either. We're all gonna make hundreds of mistakes, and I mean, that's what we talk about on this podcast a lot, is the mistakes that we made, and we're trying to learn from them.
Yeah, exactly.
And that also develops that security in ourselves and the people that we want, our children.
Yeah, because when you read about attachment and insecure forms of attachment, it can be scary, right? It can be scary to hear these things, but the important thing to remember is we as parents affect the biology of children and can always change even their neural growth or growth and function, and their genes, I think, even can be changed with good parenting. So nothing is missed.
No, exactly. From a scientific point of view, there's that they speak about genes and development in attachment. And as you said, just because there could be genetic tendencies doesn't mean that they're going to show themselves.
Yeah, exactly.
It just means that you might be more susceptible.
Yeah.
But there are genetic traits, and to be aware of that is important. But they're not going to show their themselves if you're in this secure, conscious attachment environment. What I also liked about this chapter, Leonard, maybe you can tell us a bit about the ABCs of attachment, but I found it almost like a conclusion to the chapters up until this point.
Yeah.
Whereas in our previous chapters, we've got how we perceive reality, how we remember, how we feel, how we communicate. And consciously working on those elements all form that foundation of attachment, of secure attachment. We're really trying to tap into how we're interacting with our children, what influences the way we attach to our children, how we perceive the world, how we kind of create this foundation. And so it kind of nice kind of conclusion within attachment.
Yeah, exactly.
To those previous chapters.
So basically there are secure and insecure forms of attachment. And all the things you read so far are things that form secure attachment. So that means secure attachment occurs when children have constant, consistent, emotionally attuned, contingent communications with their primary caregiver. Relationships that provide contingency, especially if in times of need, emotional need or any other need, right? So it's important for children to feel connected, understood. And this is what forms the secure attachment. So, yeah, like you said, the chapters we read, all the things we read do, these are the things that work really strongly towards building a secure attachment with your children. Yeah. And the ABCs of attachment are basically attunement, balance, and coherence, right? And attunement means pretty much what we talked about, just aligning your internal states with the internal states of your children, right? Which is previous chapter, which is contingent communication, right? To be present with your child, to feel them and to respond to them. And then there is balance, which means that your children need to attain balance of their body, emotions, and states of mind through attunement with you. And then at the end, we have coherence, which is the sense of integration that children acquire through your relationship with you, right? So pretty much that they are internally integrated emotionally, cognitively, and then interpersonally they are connected with other people, so they are not isolated. So that's the coherence. So these are ABCs of attachment. I hope that's explained.
That, to me, absolutely.
Okay.
It's an interesting thing at this point in the childhood's development. Anyone out there might be a little bit off, but what I understand with the concept of I and we also comes into play quite a lot in a 3-year-old, which we're experiencing right now. That sense of independence, like the child is detached, is different to their parents. In earlier years, 1 and 2 years old, they very see themselves as one. But now they're starting to see themselves as we. And if that attachment has been developed nicely over or consciously over the 3 years, that we is a good thing and it's positive, rather than suddenly, hang on, I'm completely different to who you are. I don't know if that makes sense.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so it's kind of nice to be conscious of the way we are aware of the child's development as well. And that attachment becomes so important after the first 3 years. I suspect that's probably why the first 3 years are crucial for creating that attachment.
Exactly. And because that's the time that the brains are most actively developing all the structures, right?
Absolutely.
And so the good case of secure attachment is, it's nicely explained in the book, is when an infant cries, and then a case of a father, if an infant cries and the father immediately stands up, goes towards the infant and then says, "Oh, what's up, baby?" He responds very compassionately, picks up the child and talks to him with a gentle voice, and then finds out what the baby needs, whether it's a diaper change or he's hungry, he satisfies that needs and puts it back. So this is like the message baby gets. Okay, if I have a need, my parent will come and he will connect with me and he will satisfy with my needs, right? And this is like what secure attachment looks like. And then there are the insecure attachments which are a bit different. The ambivalent and avoidant. Pretty much in the avoidant, you have a parent that is rejecting the child lots of time, that is not available to the emotional needs of the child, and that what forms the beliefs in his child. Okay, I have my needs, but they will not be met and they will not be satisfied. And then
it's quite subtle though as well, the difference between avoidance and ambivalence, and they can quite easily overlap.
Yeah.
And it doesn't mean also that type of insecure attachment it doesn't mean that the fatherly figure is necessarily bad or wants the worst, or is it's just can be so unconscious as well.
Yeah.
And we're all guilty of those things too.
Exactly.
It's as subtle as this infant is crying and previously you've left them for a moment and they've gone back to sleep. But this time the cry is slightly different and you haven't picked up on that because you're reading a newspaper or something. So they cry for a little longer and their needs are not being met. And it can have this kind of ripple side effect, negative effect, so we can't get it perfect every time. But it's being conscious of that. Yeah.
I'm just going to apologize for a second because my camera is going to die. I'm just going to switch it for another camera so we don't lose too much time. There we go. All right. So that's the avoidant attachment. And then we have the ambivalent, which is sometimes the parent is present, sometimes he's not present. Sometimes he's available, sometimes he's not available. And sometimes he is very intrusive as well. He goes over the boundaries of the child. And then the last one is disorganized attachment, which is attachment where children have repeated experiences when parents' behavior is overwhelming, frightening, chaotic. So violence, verbal violence, physical violence, stuff like that. That creates disorganized attachment.
And the scary thing about that is that the child's instinct is to go towards the source of this overwhelmingness.
Yeah, exactly.
And so what's the word that they use in the chapter where there's the sense of total disorientation, I suppose it is, because this is where they need to find their security, and it's the same source of their discomfort and fright and being all of that. That's the other extreme of insecure attachment.
So children with insecure attachment have many more difficulties later on in life with forming healthy relationships and dealing with emotions and stress and stuff like that. And my wife is a child psychiatrist, so she studied a lot Bowlby, and we had a lot of conversations about attachment and always worry what kind of attachment Noelle has formed towards us, and are we doing the right job and all that. But I always come to the conclusion that no matter what we did, it's always possible to fix it or to change the relationship.
Absolutely.
So
that's so important.
yeah, I think so too.
Yeah. It's never too late.
No,
it's never too late.
Yeah,
it's not set in stone. Yeah,
it's not set in stone. So I think that's briefly about attachment.
Yeah,
it's a very, very huge subject. It's basically a couple of books on its own about attachment, but that basically it's so the first 3 years children form attachment towards their primary caregiver, and that one can be secure or insecure, but we can always change it. If the relationship towards our children changes, their attachment towards us will change. So it's not set in stone, and of course as parents will fail 1,000 times, but
just like our brains are it continually changes and grows, you know, and everything can change.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I like about Daniel Siegel, that he says so many times that our brain is plastic, right? It changes all the time, and neurons fire, they rewire, they fire again, and everything can be changed. So I really like this idea that nothing is set in stone and everything can be repaired, fixed, and done differently.
Phew.
Yeah, exactly. So
thanks, Leonard.
Thanks.
That's a really good chapter. I agree with you.
Yeah, it's a good chapter. A bit difficult to read it. We bit skipped over it, but I think the vital thing to remember is that things can be always changed.
Yeah, and that's an example of this chapter. It was difficult to create personal experiences based on the content of this chapter because it's a constant work in progress.
Yeah, exactly.
Whereas the other ones, you can try something and reap immediate benefit, or you can notice and acknowledge things quite quickly. This is constant.
Yeah.
And it's based on everything we've learnt and read up until now.
Exactly. And I think our goals for next week, I will continue with journaling and just be mindful of my communication and connection with my daughter.
100%.
Yeah.
Me too. It's setting these kind of building positive habits to create secure attachments.
Exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
All right.
Thanks, Leonard.
Thank you,
That was
Demian.
a really good one.
Yeah, I think so too.
And thanks to the listeners. I just wanted to briefly say something on that. We officially launched last week, and so this is a little bit in the future for our listeners, but we've had some really amazing feedback already and people very excited, and
we are even more excited.
And it obviously psychs us up. So this is not only for dads though as well, like moms and dads, please get involved. We want to hear your stories, opinions, thoughts, and also having that interaction with the public or with people that are taking the time to listen to what we're saying. It really helps us also like get into it. So yeah, we really look forward to hearing from you guys.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
So thank you everyone, and thank you, Demian.
Thank you, Leonard. Thank you very much. See you next week.
See you next week. Bye bye.
Cheers.
Cheers.